And this is one of the reasons why we have people say, God said to me, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So then I ask him, did you hear his voice? No. Well, did you think? No, I just felt it. Well, okay, it might be from God, but you know, as I said, he's not the only one that broadcasts on that channel. Demons do have access to our emotions and feelings, etc., and to our imagination. They can put stuff in our head, right? But there has to be this absolute fidelity to grace, and that comes as we begin to gain greater virtue. Our faculties become more in tune with God, so if there's anything contrary to God, like temptations, we will start to get revulsion in relationship to temptations, even when they're things that in the past we might have gotten delight in. But then also, they become more in tune so that when they get that prompting for God, they'll follow it. So there has to be that absolute fidelity to grace if you're ever going to master prayer.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, bless it.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully you'll be edified with what we've put together for you here. A few months back, I shared an audio clip of Father Chad Ripperger of him speaking in one particular lecture, saying that the woman who writes the Harry Potter book is a witch. Naturally, some of you protested and some shared their thoughts rather strongly in the comments. Well, I'm going to add another exorcist into the mix, and no, it's not going to be Father Gabriel Amorth, who famously said that Harry Potter is king of darkness, but rather Father Daniel Reehil. And the question is, did she make a pact with the devil?
Well, the other thing you have to ask yourself about when you see somebody rise in fame so quickly. So this woman who wrote the books, she had about $200 in her bank account. She suddenly is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That doesn't happen by accident. And I'm not going to say she made a pact with the devil, but something went on there that maybe it influenced her writing. You know, we say that the Bible is inspired by the Holy Spirit. The devil can inspire as well. So I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying you have to pause when you see something like that and say, what happened here that suddenly this exploded on the world in such a fast and pronounced way?
And in the audio clip of Father Ripperger that I shared with all of you before, he also spoke of the spells in the book as being real. Again, some of you were against this, saying they're made-up spells. But here again, Father Reehil saying what Father Ripperger said before as well.
The problem that I have with the books is they try to depict evil as being, as witchcraft as being evil and then also good, right? So there's the good witchcraft and then there's the bad witchcraft. That's not true. That's a lie. There is no good witchcraft because you're tapping into the demonic. So I don't want kids thinking they can try to, ask these spirits to come help them when that's not the only good spirit is the Holy Spirit. Okay. These demonic spirits are not good. So that's my first issue with it. The second one is in each book, it progresses darker and darker into this. It's almost like they're glorifying the darkness. Mm-hmm. Also not good, right? We glorify God. That's the only one we give our glory to. And finally, several of the spells in those books were real spells. They weren't just made up. They were actual old spells that she had put into the book. So you could be invoking harm by saying these spells. It's like when we make the sign of the cross, we're asking the Trinity to be present with us, right? We're invoking him. The demons do the same thing.
Now, just as some of you didn't like what Father Reehil said of Taylor Swift's concert as being satanic in my previous video, I think there will be some who will also dismiss what Father Reehil said about Harry Potter in this video as well. But I'm sure these exorcists, whether it's Father Reehil, Father Amorth, or Father Ripperger, and so on, they're not saying things for controversial sake. I've learned long ago to be humble enough to admit I just don't know enough, and the fact that these seasoned exorcists are advising us about things that could affect us spiritually, I think it's time that we let go, listen, and learn for a change. For example, on another video I shared Father Reehil advising people not to buy this thing, Dreamcatcher. Again, some rejected what he said and saying it's just for decoration. As you know, I love listening to Father Chad Ripperger, and many of you here are too. And so I thought for this video, I'd like to share with all of you what he thinks of artificial intelligence. We've seen the growth of artificial intelligence in recent years, and then some have been labeling it diabolical. And on some days, I'll be seeing people commenting that on a video that I shared of Father Daniel Reehil talking about it a few months ago. Therefore, I think it's a good idea to share this clip with all of you, hoping that it can bring some clarity, especially when it's said by an experienced exorcist like Father Ripperger here.
Well, of itself, it's just another piece of technology ultimately, which means that it's in itself, it's actually a good thing. It doesn't mean it can't be twisted to use it for something evil. And some would say, well, it's morally neutral. And I'm like, well, most technology is actually a good thing, just like any tool is a good thing. So I think it's actually in itself, it's a good. It's like the internet is good. It doesn't mean that people aren't using it for evil purposes, or can't use it for evil purposes. But I think overall, it's a good thing. I think it's like any other form of technology, is that it has to be uh, ethical limits from human beings have to be imposed on its use. And in this particular case, it'd be things like coding and things like that, and moral use of certain kinds of data, et cetera. But I think that it's a good thing, and it's actually quite impressive. But I think it's actually a good thing that could actually help us significantly. And inside that using it for evil purposes, it could actually be used for evil purposes in the sense of occult practices and things like that, which, because some people say, it's diabolic. Well, actually, no, the coding is not diabolic in its nature. AI is not diabolic in its nature. Demons, can people say, well, can demons influence it? Well, yeah, in theory, but I've never seen an authentic case. It's usually somebody putting it into the coding, certain type of occult results and things like that. So it's the people that are the problem, and not so much the demons. Yeah, I mean, I've been reading some people who basically saying that, that this thing's diabolical, or the demons can, that the demons can manipulate it. In theory, that's why I said in theory, that's true. They can actually manipulate machines and even the outcomes of how the machines behave. The problem with it is, though, is that is so extraordinarily rare that I have yet to see anybody who can actually point to an example of that independently of the evil people who did the programming, right? So it's not the type of thing that I'm worried about demons getting involved. I'm more worried about them in inspiring people to write bad programming or to use AI in an evil way in order to manipulate other people and cause damage to other people so that the demons can gain entry to the people. Quite frankly, the demons aren't interested in controlling AI except to the degree that it can impact people and their salvation. So I'm not, and I, as an exorcist, knowing exactly what the limitations are with demons in relationship to how they can influence objects, yes, they can. And so in a sense, an AI machine could be influence them. But to see kind of like preternatural influence over something like that is so rare. I mean, I have seen it, not in relationship to machines, but in relationship to objects. It's so rare that I think the odds of it happening would be so rare that it's not. I'm just not even that worried about it.
Anyway, since the month of December is a special month for us all, I'd like to share something, or rather a reminder from a Mexican exorcist. Father Eduardo, a Catholic exorcist from Mexico, warned about the vampires that can draw people away from God, such as alcohol, sexual vices, and addiction to social media. As we know, this month is the time of spiritual preparation for the birth of the baby Jesus, and Father Eduardo explained what he meant with the vampires. Do you remember Dracula and the novels about vampires? They are fictional beings that suck people's blood while they sleep. Victims must be in a deep sleep to be attacked by these creatures of the underworld. A vampire first injects a sleep-inducing substance into the victim to keep him asleep, and meanwhile sucks his blood. In the same way, in the spiritual life, our vampires are our bad habits, especially vices. They enter our lives slowly like a narcotic. When we are asleep, they begin to suck our plasma little by little. We start losing energy, strength, motivation, will, courage, enthusiasm, attitude. We can even be living with good habits, such as going to church but only out of habit, without any inner life that motivates us. The conscience falls into a deep sleep and nothing awakens it. We can even lose our sense of good and evil. We stop having pains of conscience and thus we die spiritually. And the exorcist also said that all of us, at some point in our lives, have been victims of vampires. Alcohol, drugs, the idolatry of money, sexual vices, morally prohibited relationships, addiction to social media, pride and arrogance, the vice of working like a dog, seriously neglecting the family. Given this reality, he asked, what vampire has injected us with his poison and is consuming our blood? I'd like to share a few more things from Father Ripperger again. As I said earlier, I love listening to him, and it's always great to learn something from him.
Fasting will actually give the person a greater self-control over themselves. And so as a result, it really gives them a certain sense of self-discipline and a certain joy that actually comes in it. As an exorcist, you have to fast quite regularly because of the fact that there's two reasons. One is the demons know your weakness. And so what they'll do is, unless you're fasting to overcome your own weaknesses, then what they'll do, and if you don't fast, it means that you just haven't brought your body into subjection, which means they can just beat you around as an exorcist. And usually within the first year or two after a priest becomes an exorcist, he goes through a living nightmare because of the fact that he's getting beat around all the time, because of the fact that he hasn't subjugated his body well enough. But there comes a certain point, usually very often, when he gets a very harsh possession case where he either has to do the black fast, which is bread and water for 3 straight days, on and off, or you have to do what I have to do. I have a woman who's possessed and I have to fast 6 days a week, otherwise she cannot survive. And I've been doing it for 5 straight months. And you have to get into that. It's possible. I never thought I would have been doing it. You're looking at a guy who lost 95 pounds. Not from that particular case, by the way. But this is something which it's just something that, and there is a significant difference when you fast and when you don't. On the days I don't fast, I have to step up the prayers because otherwise it's very difficult for her to function. So, prayer and fasting.
By the way, my apology for the interruption. I'd like to explain something in regards to what Father Ripperger said about black fast. A black fast, also known as a strict fast, is an ancient form of early Christian fasting. Those undertaking a black fast consume no food or water during the day, and then break the fast after sunset with prayer, the meal often but not necessarily being devoid of meat, eggs, dairy, and alcohol. And historically, most Christians fasted in this way during Lent.
That every single attachment you have to anything created whatsoever can become a thing upon which they can take you for a ride. And the reason being is this. Let me give you an example. This is kind of, let me give you an analogy. You know how you take the rag or the towel and you stick it in front of the dog's face and it bites onto it and you start dragging it around? But that's exactly the way demons are with respect to our attachments. If you have an undue attachment to, the particular hobby you do, not that hobbies are bad, they're actually good things, they're part of the virtue of eutrapelia, the virtue of right recreation. But the point is that they can take that, if you hold on to that, they can just drag you around in quiet because they can just suggest things in relationship to it and you'll start doing it. So they can just drag you all over the map. And so what's this mean? Well, it means that you have to have perfect detachment from absolutely everything that is created. Even your wife, your home, everything. Doesn't mean you become cold to your wife. It's quite the contrary. We're not Buddhists. We're not Zen Buddhists. We become detached for the sake of going into nothingness. It's just absurd. What it is we become detached because then through the detachment from everything created, our heart, the room in our heart is freed up for God to take His full presence in there and we can love Him with our whole mind and our whole heart. Anytime you have an attachment, you can't fulfill the precept of charity perfectly. And so what happens? Well, then as a person becomes more charitable, then as he becomes detached and he tries to perform acts of charity, then what happens is then what flows from charity is benignity and kindness and benevolence. And so the person actually becomes warmer in the process, not colder. It also perfects marital love because it's based on a natural human love, which is a good thing, but it's not perfect. Only charity is perfect for human beings. And so as it transforms, it'll take that natural human love and even the romantic side of marriage and transform it into an act of charity, which is quite important. Charity itself, by developing the virtues, is one of the principal ways in which you can break demonic influence in your life. Virtue.
Anyway, that is all for the video this time. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And if it isn't too much of a hassle, please do share this video on your social media to help spread the message. And for those of you who'd like to support our works, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contribution, and prayer. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and may God bless you.